All right, coming up on today's show, the Indiana Pacers have been named a sleeper team for a Ben Simmons trade, but other teams are still reportedly in the mix and willing to make an offer, and Joel Embiid seems fed up with how Ben Simmons is handling this and all of this drama. But first, before we hop into today's show, Sixers preseason starts on Monday against the Toronto Raptors. Regular season right around the corner on October 20th. Yes, we're going to be ramping up our coverage here on the channel, but if you're pumped up for some Sixers basketball like me, hit that thumbs up icon, like the video, and let's get into today's show. You're watching Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Chase Sr. Hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Chase_Senior. Bringing you this video from the crib, not the Chat Sports studios, because there's so much to get to on the Ben Simmons front. Before we get started, though, make sure you hit that red subscribe button down below. We're about 130 people away from 2,000 subscribers. Show some love to the fastest growing Sixers channel here on YouTube. So on the jump on ESPN, Bobby Marks, Zach Lowe, Brian Windhorst, talking about everything that's going on the Ben Simmons front, potential destinations, potential trades. Bobby Marks put together tiers. Brian Windhorst called the Indiana Pacers the sleeper team for Simmons. Zach Lowe agreed, saying they can put together a very, very appealing offer. So we're going to explore all of that on today's show. But first, let's start off with what Bobby Marks had said. So he broke Ben Simmons' trade destinations into two tiers. Tier 1, the teams most likely to trade for Simmons. Tier 2, the teams that you really can't sleep on. In his Tier 1 teams for Simmons, he listed the Portland Trail Blazers, Cleveland Cavaliers, Indiana Pacers, Minnesota Timberwolves, San Antonio Spurs, as well as the Toronto Raptors. He said the two teams that make the most sense, the Blazers, because they can do a player-for-player swap, receive Ben Simmons, send out CJ McCollum. He also mentioned the Spurs, which I actually really disagree with. I don't think they have the assets in terms of players or the draft capital for the Sixers to kind of be lured in by. But Bobby Marks did talk about Derek White, DeJounte Murray potentially being trade pieces. I've said this here on the channel. I would not pull the trigger on a deal that brings you back White, Murray, and some draft capital. I think Simmons' value is a lot higher than what people are thinking, and I think you can get a much better offer out there on the market. Now, a lot of people are probably wondering, this relationship between Simmons and Philly has been contentious for a while. Everything started brewing after that Atlanta Hawks series. Why has there been so much time, and why hasn't a trade happened? According to some people that I've talked to within the league, according to some reporters out there, teams were just really fatigued with everything going on with this whole COVID year. It was very straining. So after the NBA Summer League, everybody just kind of took a step away from basketball to recharge for this upcoming season, and that's why all of these Ben Simmons trade talks are now back with NBA training camp here and the regular season right around the corner. Now, Marks did say a trade for Simmons might not happen until November, which doesn't come as much of a surprise because of the developments of Simmons not reporting to Sixers training camp. We'll get to that here in just a bit, but he did say come November, because teams like their rosters right now in training camp and they're kind of feeling everything out, they think that he thinks that come November, if a team thinks they're about a Ben Simmons away from really being a solid team in the East or the West, maybe they'll make a deal then. So a trade might not happen for a bit, and that's pretty significant from a financial perspective because news coming out on Friday that the Sixers are already withholding $8+ million from Simmons that he was due today for not reporting to training camp. So that becomes now a legal situation. It becomes a standoff between the organization as well as Simmons. That's something to continue to monitor. And Embiid calling Simmons not reporting to training camp disrespectful on Thursday because he's not there and is not fulfilling his obligation of being an employee of the Sixers, joining his teammates in training camp. And also there was a report that Embiid, Matisse Thybulle, Tobias Harris, they wanted to hop on a PJ on the private jet to fly out to LA to try to convince Simmons to come back, and he said, nah, I'm good. So that's pretty telling too as to where Simmons' feelings are toward the organization. Now, as for what Zach Lowe said, he said ideally Sixers want Damian Lillard. Of course they do. He's the best trade asset out there that could actually be moved leading up to the NBA trade deadline. He also thinks the Blazers make a lot of sense because of that player-for-player swap that fits with what Philly wants from a playmaking standpoint in CJ McCollum, but also his contract is very close to Ben Simmons as well. So a player-for-player swap could definitely go down, but he kind of said the Sixers can argue, look, Simmons was an all-NBA player 2 years ago. We want another player. Now, we've talked here on the channel about maybe Robert Covington being included in that. I would like that. Bring back Rocco as a 3-and-D guy. He would also fit on this roster too. But here's where things get interesting. And here's where the sleeper team comes into the equation. We're laying it all out for you, Sixers fans. The wild card team, according to Zach Lowe, and the sleeper team, according to Brian Windhorst, it's the Indiana Pacers, especially if they get off to a slow start. Now, they have some tradable assets on that roster. They also have control over their picks. They also have hired Rick Carlisle as their coach. He's going to be able, possibly, to turn that team into a winner, a more competitive team than they've been in years past. And maybe the Pacers will get to a point where they're like, you know what? We have some solid pieces on this roster. Simmons would be a complimentary player next to them. Let's put together an offer and make a deal to bring in a superstar who's also under team control. So I could see the Pacers getting involved in a Simmons trade. They also have some players who can fit alongside Joel Embiid. Now, I know Domantas Sabonis plays a little 4, plays a little 5. There's a positional clash there because Embiid plays the same position at times, but he is coming off an all-star season. He does have range out to the elbow, baseline, and three-point arc. He's a really good player. I do think that he could play power forward. Where would that leave Gorgui Yang? I'm not sure. Maybe you try to trade him as part of that deal. The other big name to follow is Malcolm Brogdon, who I really like. 3-level scorer, very good creator. The health concerns me a little bit, but he's a borderline all-star, and he fits kind of what the Sixers want and need from a playmaking standpoint that they've been missing since they got rid of Jimmy Butler. And could Brogdon fit alongside Tyrese Maxey? Karis LeVert, also a bucket getter as well. He could be included in that deal. And Brian Windhorst, on top of what Zach Lowe said, he said, look, Pacers are the sleeper team. They have those player assets, full control over their picks. Indiana, and I thought this is a pretty solid point, and it's something that, we've discussed here on our NBA coverage here at Chat Sports. Like, for these small market teams, they don't always have the ability, and rarely do they have the ability, to go after a marquee free agent because that free agent wants to go to the larger market, to the more successful franchise. But for Indiana, they can excite that fan base, which is a very great and knowledgeable basketball fan base, by bringing in a multi-time All-Star, 3-time All-Star in Ben Simmons, and arguably the league's best defender because he can guard positions 1 through 5. He has that name power. He has that celebrity. I'm sure Simmons would love to go from the pressure cooker of Philly to the small market of Indiana. So Indiana could be enticing because they have those assets, draft control over their picks, and Simmons could fit nicely on that roster. Other assets on that team, Miles Turner, I don't think that would happen because he would really clash with Embiid more so than Domantas Sabonis. TJ Warren, solid player. He can score. Jeremy Lamb, Warren, we know, just shredded the Sixers in the NBA bubble. So Windy said, I think Indiana waiting for the Sixers because, they could put together an offer few teams would offer. Of course, this would all come down to what Simmons' realistic value is. And all of these conversations have been to a varying level of you can't get an all-star back for him. His value is diminished because of that playoff series. I think his value is a lot higher because he's an elite passer. He's a pretty good finisher around the rim. His court vision is very special. He's an excellent defender. I think probably the best in the league because he can guard wings, guards, as well as big men. So I do think that you can get an all-star player back. Now, is he going to be included in a deal that would have gotten you James Harden last year if you pulled that trigger? No. But something to certainly keep track of here. Bobby Marks finished off by saying second-tier teams that could trade for Simmons: Hawks, Warriors, Celtics, Pelicans. Hawks could be weird. A Trae Young, Ben Simmons backcourt is what Marks had kind of proposed there. Zach Lowe had said if Boston wants to go uber big at the wing spot, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Ben Simmons. That's a menacing defensive potential for Boston. I'm not sure what the on-court fit offensively would be. Maybe you just put Simmons in the dunker spot. You let him play down low as kind of a hybrid big man who can also control the rock in transition and in the half court at times, but that could be somewhat weird. Zach Lowe had said Boston, like some of these other teams who could be in on Simmons, they also have team control over their picks. All right, wanted to bring you a quick Sixers video on a Friday night. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you made it this far, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. We're going to be ramping up our coverage here. I'm a Philly guy, grew up in Westchester, went to Temple, been passionate about this team since I was a young kid watching Allen Iverson ball out in 1996 when I was like 4 years old. So hit that subscribe button down below, support a fellow Philly dude, and keep it locked for more Sixers news and rumors coverage.